Picture this. A young black woman in a $15,000 Vera Wang gown stands outside a bathroom door at one of the most exclusive charity galas of the year. Her posture is elegant, her makeup flawless, every detail of her appearance screams wealth and sophistication. But her face shows something else: distress, disbelief, and mounting humiliation. Because standing between her and that bathroom door is a white woman in a staff uniform, arms crossed, blocking her entry like she's guarding the crown jewels. A security guard approaches from down the hallway, his radio crackling. "Ma'am, you need to leave this area immediately." The young woman's hands tremble slightly as she clutches her small designer clutch. She's not leaving because she's done something wrong. She's being forced to leave because someone has decided in an instant that she doesn't belong here, that she couldn't possibly be a guest at this $10,000 per ticket event. That access to a bathroom, something so basic, so fundamental, should be denied to her. But here's what nobody in that hallway knows. Here's what the bathroom attendant and the approaching security guard and the other guests watching this spectacle don't realize. In exactly 10 minutes, this young woman will stand on a stage in front of 300 of the wealthiest, most powerful people in the city, and she will say something that destroys their comfortable evening and forces a reckoning they never saw coming. Because they just denied bathroom access to a billionaire's daughter, and she's about to make sure they never forget it. What happens when privilege meets prejudice, and the person you dismiss has more power than you ever imagined? Stay with me, because this story will leave you absolutely speechless. This is Jasmine Okoye, 24 years old, standing 5'7" in her elegant heels, with deep brown skin, natural hair styled in an intricate updo that took 2 hours at one of the city's most exclusive salons. Her gown is custom Vera Wang, midnight blue silk that flows like water, fitted perfectly to her frame, the kind of dress that costs more than most people's monthly rent. But Jasmine deliberately chose understated jewelry. Simple diamond studs, a delicate gold bracelet, nothing ostentatious. Because despite having access to wealth most people can't even conceptualize, Jasmine has never been comfortable flashing it. Jasmine Okoye is the daughter of Dr. Chioma Okoye, a Nigerian-American tech entrepreneur whose company revolutionized cybersecurity protocols for financial institutions. Dr. Okoye's net worth sits at $4.2 billion, not million, billion. She's one of the most successful black women in tech, a self-made billionaire who immigrated to the United States at 23 with 2 suitcases and a computer science degree, and built an empire through brilliant innovation and relentless determination.
But Jasmine didn't grow up flaunting her mother's success. She grew up trying to prove she was more than just a rich kid who inherited opportunity. She attended Stanford University for her undergraduate degree, graduated summa cum laude with a double major in business administration and African studies. Then she earned her MBA from Stanford's Graduate School of Business at 23, one of the youngest in her cohort. She speaks 4 languages fluently: English, Igbo, French, and Mandarin. She's published research on economic development in West Africa. She's brilliant, driven, and constantly aware that people are watching her, waiting for her to fail, ready to dismiss her accomplishments as products of privilege rather than merit. Because that's been Jasmine's experience her entire life, being questioned about whether she really earned her Stanford admission or whether a generous donation from her mother opened that door. Having professors assume she needs extra help when she's actually the top performer in her classes. Watching white classmates with identical credentials be taken at face value while she has to prove herself repeatedly. The exhausting burden of being exceptional just to be considered equal. So Jasmine built her own life, her own identity separate from her mother's shadow. She runs a nonprofit called TechBridge, which provides technology education and resources to underserved communities across the country. She's opened computer labs in 30 schools in low-income neighborhoods. She's funded scholarships for over 200 students pursuing STEM degrees. She does this work not for recognition, most people have no idea she's behind it, but because she genuinely believes that wealth is responsibility, that those who have resources have an obligation to create opportunity for those who don't. Tonight, Jasmine is attending the Metropolitan Charity Gala, one of the most exclusive social events of the year. This isn't just any fundraiser, this is where old money mingles with new money, where CEOs network with politicians, where deals get made and alliances get formed over champagne and past hors d'oeuvres. Tickets cost $10,000 per person. 300 guests, each one representing wealth, power, or influence in various forms. The gala is held at the Wentworth Estate, a sprawling mansion in the city's most prestigious neighborhood. Helena Wentworth, 58 years old and the current matriarch of the family, runs these events with the precision of a military operation and the exclusivity of a private club. She's old money, third-generation wealth built on real estate and investments, and she treats her role as society gatekeeper with absolute seriousness. Jasmine arrived at the gala at 7 p.m., stepping out of a hired car. She could have had a driver in a luxury vehicle, but again, she doesn't like the ostentation. She checked in at the registration table without incident, gave her name to the impeccably dressed attendant, received her table assignment. Table 4, one of the premium tables near the stage, reserved for major donors. Because while Jasmine came alone tonight, her mother is traveling in Lagos for business. The Okoye Foundation is the event's platinum sponsor. They've donated $2 million to support the Metropolitan Charities programs over the past 5 years.
For the first hour, Jasmine does exactly what she came to do, network. She moves through the grand ballroom with practiced ease, comfortable in these spaces, even as she's hyper-aware of the occasional double-take, the subtle surprise when she introduces herself and people realize she's not someone's plus one or a junior staffer, but a primary guest with her own table. She speaks with foundation directors about potential partnerships. She discusses urban education initiatives with a superintendent. She exchanges ideas about technology access with a nonprofit executive. She's articulate, knowledgeable, engaging, everything she needs to be to represent her family's philanthropic interests. The Wentworth Estate is magnificent. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over polished marble floors. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook manicured gardens lit with thousands of tiny lights. Tables are draped in ivory linens, centerpieces overflowing with white roses and orchids. Servers circulate with champagne and canapes. A string quartet plays classical music from a corner stage. Everything is perfect, elegant, designed to make guests feel they're part of something exclusive and important. About an hour into the event, after drinking 2 glasses of champagne and several glasses of water, after standing in heels and making conversation and being on in the way these events require, Jasmine feels a very human, very urgent need. She needs a bathroom. Not in 5 minutes, not after this conversation ends, now. She excuses herself mid-discussion with the museum director who's been explaining an upcoming exhibition, offers an apologetic smile, and heads toward the restroom she'd noted when she first arrived. The main guest bathroom is on the 2nd floor, up a sweeping marble staircase, down a hallway lined with family portraits and antique furniture. It's the kind of bathroom that serves 6 or 7 guests at a time, with individual stalls, a lounge area with plush seating, artfully lit mirrors, and probably nicer amenities than most people have in their actual bathrooms. Jasmine has been to enough of these events to know that even the restrooms are designed to reinforce the luxury and exclusivity of the experience. As she approaches the bathroom, she sees a woman standing outside the door. Carol, though Jasmine doesn't know her name yet. Carol is in her mid-50s, white, with graying hair pulled back in a neat bun. She's wearing the staff uniform, black slacks, white shirt, the Wentworth Estate insignia embroidered on the breast pocket. She's been working for the Wentworth family for 20 years, has seen thousands of guests come through these events, and has very specific ideas about who belongs where. Carol looks up as Jasmine approaches, and something shifts in her expression immediately. Not dramatic, not obvious, but Jasmine has learned to read these micro-expressions.
The subtle tightening around the eyes, the way Carol's posture straightens, becomes defensive. The assessment happening in a split second. Elegant gown noted but dismissed, jewelry checked and found wanting. Skin color registered and processed. Conclusion reached.
Jasmine reaches for the bathroom door, and Carol steps slightly to the side, blocking access with her body positioning. Her voice is polite but firm. "I'm sorry, this bathroom is for guests only." Jasmine pauses, confused. She glances at the door, then back at Carol. "I am a guest. I need to use the restroom." Carol's expression doesn't change. "Do you have your ticket?" The question hangs in the air. Jasmine blinks, processing what's being asked. Her ticket, the small cardstock admission ticket she received when she checked in, which she placed in her clutch and left at her table. Because why would she need to carry her admission ticket to the bathroom? "My ticket? It's in my clutch at my table. I just need to—" Jasmine gestures toward the bathroom door, her discomfort increasing with every second this conversation continues. Carol shakes her head, apologetic in tone but immovable in stance. "I can't let you in without seeing your ticket. There have been incidents of service staff using guest facilities." And there it is. The implication laid bare. Service staff. Carol has looked at Jasmine, at her $15,000 gown, her professional styling, her obvious attendance at this exclusive event, and decided she must be staff. Catering, probably. Maybe events coordination. Certainly not a guest. Because in Carol's 20 years of working these events, guests look a certain way. And Jasmine, despite every external marker of wealth and sophistication, doesn't fit that mental image. Jasmine feels heat rising in her face, not from embarrassment exactly, but from the familiar, exhausting recognition of what's happening. She's been here before, metaphorically. Different contexts, same underlying assumption. The security guard who follows her in upscale stores, the restaurant hostess who asks if she's sure she has a reservation, the university administrator who assumed she was there to drop off an application rather than attend an admitted students' event. "I'm not staff," Jasmine says, keeping her voice level despite her mounting frustration and physical discomfort. "I'm a guest. I'm Jasmine Okoye. My table is table 4. I really need to use this restroom." Carol's expression shifts to something that might be pity or might be condescension. It's hard to tell which is which. "The staff restrooms are downstairs, past the kitchen. Someone there can direct you." The implication is devastating in its casual cruelty. Go downstairs. Go to the service areas. Go where you belong. Because Carol has decided, based on nothing but appearance and assumption, that Jasmine belongs in staff spaces, not guest spaces. That she's the help, not one of the 300 people who paid $10,000, or in Jasmine's case, whose foundation donated $2 million to be here.
Jasmine stands there, her body's urgent signals becoming impossible to ignore, her mind racing through options. She could go downstairs to the staff restroom, take the path of least resistance, avoid making a scene. She could walk back to her table, get her ticket, return, though by the time she does that, she might not make it. She could insist more forcefully, risk being labeled aggressive or difficult. Or she could try one more time to make this woman understand that she's making a terrible mistake. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, do it right now, because what happens next will blow your mind. "I'm a guest at this event," Jasmine says, her voice tight with controlled emotion. "I need to use this restroom now. I have a table assignment. I checked in at registration. I have every right to be here." But Carol is already shaking her head, already reaching for the radio clipped to her waist. "Ma'am, if you continue to insist on accessing guest facilities without proper verification, I'm gonna have to call security." Security. The word lands like a physical blow. Jasmine is about to be treated as a security threat because she needs to use a bathroom at an event her family's foundation is sponsoring. Because a woman who's never spoken to her before has decided, based on prejudice masquerading as policy, that she doesn't belong. And in that moment, standing in that hallway, with her dignity being stripped away over something as basic and human as needing a restroom, Jasmine makes a decision. She's not going downstairs. She's not going to accept this treatment. She's not going to let this moment pass without consequence. But first, she has to deal with the security guard she can hear approaching from down the hall, radio crackling, heavy footsteps on marble floors, coming to handle the situation that Carol has created. What would you do in Jasmine's position? Would you go downstairs to avoid confrontation, or would you stand your ground and demand the respect you've earned? Drop your answer in the comments because this situation is about to escalate in ways nobody expects.
The security guard's footsteps grow louder, echoing off the marble floors of the Wentworth Estate's second-floor hallway. But before he arrives, the bathroom door opens and another guest emerges. Jennifer Hartley, mid-40s, blonde hair styled in perfect waves, wearing a champagne-colored gown that probably cost as much as Jasmine's, but somehow reads differently. Reads as belonging, as expected, as exactly what a guest at this event should look like. Jennifer takes in the scene immediately. Carol standing guard at the bathroom door, Jasmine standing a few feet away with visible distress on her face, the tension crackling in the air. And without knowing anything about what's actually happening, without asking a single question, Jennifer makes an instant assessment and picks a side. Is there a problem here? Jennifer's voice carries that particular tone of concerned authority, the voice of someone who's used to having their opinion matter, their judgment accepted without question. Carol turns to her with visible relief, like reinforcements have arrived. This woman is insisting on using the guest restroom without proper identification. I've explained our policies, but she's refusing to cooperate. Refusing to cooperate. Those words reshape the narrative entirely. Now Jasmine isn't a guest being denied basic access. She's someone refusing to follow reasonable rules, someone being difficult, someone creating a problem where none needed to exist. Jennifer looks at Jasmine up and down, a slow, deliberate assessment. She notes the Vera Wang gown, the elegant styling, the expensive shoes. For a moment, something flickers in her expression. Confusion, maybe, or cognitive dissonance as she tries to reconcile what she's seeing with what Carol has implied. But then that flicker disappears, replaced by certainty. Because sometimes people see what they expect to see, rather than what's actually in front of them. Well, Carol is just doing her job, Jennifer says, her tone reasonable, diplomatic. Security is important at events like these. We've had incidents in the past. I'm sure you understand. Jasmine feels something crack inside her chest. Not break, not yet, but crack. Because this is worse than Carol's initial suspicion. This is another guest, someone who should understand what it means to attend this event, validating the discrimination. Wrapping it in the language of security and policy and reasonable precautions. I'm a guest, Jasmine says, and she hates how her voice sounds, tight, strained, defensive, when she should be calm and assured. If you're really a guest, surely you can just show your ticket. That's all Carol is asking for. It's a simple request to verify your status.
Your status. As if Jasmine's presence here is questionable, provisional, something that needs to be proven rather than assumed. It's at my table, Jasmine explains, feeling absurd for having to justify why she didn't bring her admission ticket to the bathroom. I didn't bring it with me because I didn't think I'd need documentation to use a restroom. That's not a reasonable... We have standards here, Jennifer interrupts, her voice getting slightly sharper. We can't just let anyone... And then she catches herself. The sentence hangs unfinished in the air, but everyone knows what the end of that sentence would have been. We can't just let anyone use guest facilities. We can't just let anyone claim they belong here. We can't just let anyone bypass the security measures designed to keep certain people in their proper places. Jasmine feels the humiliation mixing with her physical discomfort, which has now reached a point of genuine urgency. Her body doesn't care about policy or discrimination or standing on principle. Her body just needs a bathroom, now. And every second of this conversation makes that need more acute, more impossible to ignore. She considers just giving up, going downstairs to the staff bathroom like Carol suggested, taking the path of least resistance, avoiding the scene that's already forming as other guests slow their walks down the hallway, noticing the commotion, starting the watch. But something in Jasmine rebels against that option. Because going downstairs means accepting Carol's judgment, means agreeing that she belongs in staff spaces rather than guest spaces, means internalizing the message that she's not worthy of the same treatment as every white guest who's walked past this bathroom without being questioned. And Jasmine has spent too much of her life fighting against those messages to accept this one now. But before she can decide what to say next, the security guard arrives. And this is where the situation shifts in a way Jasmine didn't expect. Marcus Davis is 35, black, with a solid build of someone who takes physical fitness seriously and the careful demeanor of someone who's learned to navigate white spaces by being impeccably professional at all times. He's wearing a dark suit with an earpiece, the standard uniform of high-end event security. He's head of security for tonight's gala. Former police officer who left the force after 10 years because, well, that's a longer story, but it involves witnessing too much corruption and making too many moral compromises for a paycheck. Carol had radioed him, "We have a situation on the second floor." Those words that security professionals know mean trouble, confrontation, something that needs to be handled before it escalates. Marcus arrives with his professional assessment already running. He takes in Carol's defensive posture, Jennifer's concerned citizen stance, and Jasmine, and something flickers across his face. Not obvious, not dramatic, but there. Recognition. Not of Jasmine specifically, but of the situation. Because Marcus has been black in white spaces his entire adult life. He's been followed in stores, questioned in neighborhoods where he had every right to be, assumed to be security or staff rather than guest at events exactly like this one.
He knows what's happening here. The question is what he's going to do about it. What seems to be the problem? His voice is carefully neutral, professional, giving nothing away. Carol jumps in immediately, her story now polished from repetition. This woman is demanding access to the guest restroom without identification. I explained our policies, but she became argumentative. I felt it was necessary to call for assistance. Became argumentative. Another narrative shift. Now Jasmine isn't just refusing to cooperate. She's been hostile, aggressive, the kind of person who requires security intervention. Marcus turns to Jasmine, and his expression is carefully blank, but his eyes tell a different story. "Ma'am, what's your name?" "Jasmine Okoye." Her voice steadier now, because something about Marcus's presence feels different than Carol and Jennifer. "I'm at table 4. I'm a guest at this event. I just need to use the restroom." Marcus pulls out a tablet from inside his jacket, the kind of device security uses to track guest lists, table assignments, and any VIP notes that need special attention. He scrolls through with deliberate slowness, and Jasmine watches his face as he finds her name. Watches him see not just her name, but her table assignment, table 4, one of the premium tables. Watches him see whatever notation is there about the Okoye Foundation's platinum sponsorship. When Marcus looks up, he glances at Carol with an expression that's professionally neutral, but carries weight underneath. "I see Ms. Okoye on the list. Table 4.
He lets that sink in for a moment. Table 4, not table 40, not the back of the room. Table 4, where major donors sit. Carol's face flushes. Well, how was I supposed to know? She didn't have her ticket. I was just following protocol about verifying guest status before allowing facility access. Protocol, policy, following procedures. The words that turn discrimination into something that sounds reasonable, defendable, like Carol was just doing her job rather than making assumptions based on prejudice. Marcus turns to Jasmine, and his expression is carefully blank, but his eyes tell a different story. The bathroom is available for all guests, Ms. Okoye. Please go ahead.
But the damage is done. Because this interaction didn't happen in private, it happened in a hallway where other guests have gathered, drawn by the commotion. A small crowd has formed, maybe 10 or 12 people, all watching this scene unfold. Jasmine sees their faces: curiosity, judgment, discomfort. Some people already pulling out phones to record, because that's what people do now when something dramatic happens in public spaces. Whispers ripple through the watching crowd. What's happening? Something about not having a ticket? Is she trying to sneak in? Security had to be called. The story being constructed in real time, shaped by assumptions and incomplete information, and people's existing biases about who belongs where and why. Jasmine walks toward the bathroom door, and Carol steps aside, but grudgingly, like she's not entirely convinced Marcus made the right call. As Jasmine passes, she hears Jennifer Hartley lean toward Carol and whisper, not quietly enough, "Well, you were just being cautious. Better safe than sorry." Better safe than sorry. As if Jasmine represents a threat that needed to be guarded against. As if Carol's suspicion was justified, even if it turned out to be wrong. As if there's no cost to treating someone like they don't belong, like they're lying, like they're trying to access something they haven't earned. Jasmine enters the bathroom, and the door closes behind her, muffling the voices in the hallway. She's finally alone. Finally able to take care of the urgent physical need that started this entire nightmare. But her hands are shaking so badly she can barely manage the simple mechanics of what she needs to do. When she's finished, she stands at the sink, washing her hands with water that's probably temperature-controlled to the perfect warmth, using soap that's certainly expensive and organic, and chosen to match the luxury aesthetic of every detail in this space. The bathroom is beautiful, all marble and gold fixtures and soft lighting designed to be flattering, fresh flowers on the counter, plush hand towels embroidered with the Wentworth family crest. Every element communicating exclusivity, privilege, the message that you've arrived at a place where even the bathrooms are better than ordinary people experience. Jasmine looks at herself in the mirror. Her makeup is still perfect. The makeup artist who did it this afternoon knew her craft. Her hair is still elegantly styled. Her Vera Wang gown still flows beautifully, still costs more than most people make in a month. Everything about her external appearance screams wealth, sophistication, belonging. But none of it mattered. Subscribe to this channel right now if you haven't already, because what Jasmine does next will change everything. She thinks about her mother, Dr. Chioma Okoye, who immigrated to the United States at 23 with $200 in her pocket and a computer science degree from the University of Lagos, who worked 3 jobs while getting her master's degree, who faced professors who didn't think a black woman could excel in tech, who pitched her first startup idea to 40 investors before one agreed to take a chance, who built a $4 billion company through sheer brilliance and determination and refusing to accept other people's limitations.
Her mother, who's been dismissed and underestimated and prejudged her entire life, who never let it break her, who taught Jasmine that dignity isn't something others grant you, it's something you claim for yourself. Jasmine pulls out her phone, several texts from her mother. "How's the gala? Making good connections? Remember to talk to the Education Foundation director." Jasmine stares at those texts.
She considers calling her mother, explaining what just happened. But what would she say? That she was denied bathroom access at an event their foundation sponsors? That she was treated like staff, questioned and humiliated in front of other guests? That all her education and accomplishments and her family's wealth meant nothing when someone decided she didn't look like she belonged? Then Jasmine thinks about what her mother would do in this situation. Her mother wouldn't just accept this, wouldn't quietly go back to her table and pretend nothing happened, wouldn't let this moment pass without consequence. Neither will she. Jasmine takes a deep breath, steadies herself, and opens the bathroom door. She walks out with her head high, her posture perfect, every inch of her communicating the confidence and dignity that Carol tried to strip away. Carol and Jennifer are still in the hallway, now chatting with several other guests who'd gathered to watch the spectacle. They're laughing about something, their body language relaxed, like what just happened was a minor inconvenience already forgotten. They don't even acknowledge Jasmine as she walks past, don't offer apologies, don't show any awareness that they did something wrong. Because from their perspective, they didn't do anything wrong. They were following protocols, maintaining standards, keeping the event secure. The fact that those protocols only seem to apply to guests of color isn't something they've examined or questioned. It's just how things work, how things have always worked. Jasmine walks down the marble staircase, through the grand hallway, back into the ballroom where 300 guests are mingling and laughing and discussing business over champagne. She returns to table 4, where her seat awaits, where her clutch sits exactly where she left it, containing the ticket that apparently is required to access a bathroom. Her table mates are deep in conversation. A foundation director discussing grant allocations, a city councilwoman sharing insights about upcoming infrastructure projects, a tech executive explaining his company's latest innovation. They're the kind of conversations that happen at these events, where networking and relationship building happen under the guise of casual social interaction. Jasmine sits down, and one of her table mates glances over with a polite smile. "Everything all right? You were gone for a while." "Fine," Jasmine says, matching the smile. "Just fine." But her mind is racing, because something fundamental has shifted in the past 10 minutes. She came to this event to network, to represent her family's foundation, to build partnerships and have strategic conversations about philanthropy. She came prepared to be professional, diplomatic, strategic. She came playing by their rules, but they changed the rules on her, reminded her that no matter how much money her family has, no matter how educated she is, no matter how perfectly she presents herself, she's still someone who can be stopped at a bathroom door, still someone whose presence is questioned, still someone who has to prove she belongs. Jasmine pulls out her phone and begins typing with deliberate precision. First text to her mother's executive assistant. Need the Wentworth donation file. Everything. All correspondence, all proposals, all financial commitments. Send it to my phone immediately. Second text to her mother. Mom, we need to talk about the Wentworth sponsorship. Something happened tonight. Call me when you can. Third text to her own assistant. Pull together all documentation of our foundation's relationship with Metropolitan Charity. Every donation, every program we funded, every communication. I need it in 10 minutes. Her phone rings almost immediately. Her mother. Because Dr. Chioma Okoye didn't build a billion-dollar company by being slow to respond to urgent messages from her daughter. Jasmine excuses herself from the table again, walks to a quiet corner of the ballroom near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gardens. The string quartet is playing something classical and soothing, designed to create an atmosphere of elegance and calm. But there's nothing calm about what Jasmine is feeling. "Mom,"
she says quietly when she answers. Jasmine, what happened? Her mother's voice carries across thousands of miles. She's in Lagos for meetings, but sounds like she's right there. That particular tone that's equal parts concerned parent and strategic CEO, ready to handle whatever problem has emerged.
Jasmine explains in controlled, factual terms. What happened at the bathroom? Carol's assumptions. Jennifer's reinforcement. The security guard. The crowd. The humiliation of being questioned about her right to be somewhere her family is paying millions to support. There's silence on the other end of the line when she finishes. Then her mother's voice comes back, and it's cold in a way Jasmine has only heard a few times. The voice her mother uses in boardrooms when someone has made a serious miscalculation. What do you want to do, Jasmine? Because I can make calls. I can have every board member of that charity on the phone within the hour. I can have our lawyers drafting statements. I can make this very loud and very public very quickly. And that's when Jasmine realizes something. Her mother is offering her the nuclear option, the full force of their family's wealth and influence deployed to destroy the people who humiliated her. It would be easy, it would be justified, and it would be deeply satisfying. But Jasmine thinks about what that would accomplish. Headlines, maybe. Apologies, certainly. People fired or reprimanded. But would it actually change anything? Or would it just be another story about a rich person throwing their weight around when they felt disrespected? No, Mom, Jasmine says slowly. Let me handle this. But I need your permission for something. They talk for 3 minutes. Jasmine explains what she's thinking. Her mother asks sharp questions, pokes at potential weaknesses in the approach, pushes Jasmine to think through consequences. But underneath the questioning, Jasmine hears something else in her mother's voice. Pride. When they hang up, Jasmine's expression has changed completely. She's not a humiliated guest anymore, trying to process what happened to her. She's not a victim of discrimination, powerless against institutional prejudice. She's Jasmine Okoye, daughter of the billionaire, Stanford MBA, someone who understands exactly how power works in these spaces. And she's just decided to use that power, not to punish individuals, but to force systemic change. She walks back to table 4 with a new purpose, sits down, smiles at her table mates, listens to their conversations with half her attention while the other half plans exactly what she's going to say when she gets the opportunity. Because in about 45 minutes, there's going to be a program, speeches, acknowledgments of donors, recognition of the people whose money makes this charity's work possible.
And Jasmine is going to make sure she gets a microphone. What would you do in Jasmine's position? Would you accept a private apology and move on, or would you make it public to force real change? Drop your answer in the comments, because how we respond to injustice determines whether it continues or transforms. Jasmine walks back to table 4 with a completely different energy. She's not the humiliated guest anymore, trying to process what just happened to her. She's strategic now, calculating. Because if she's going to do this right, she needs information. She needs leverage. She needs to understand exactly how much power she actually holds. She sits down at her table, and her table mates are deep in conversation. Perfect. She leans in, listening carefully, then starts asking questions. Casual questions. The kind that seem like polite dinner conversation but are actually intelligence gathering. How is Metropolitan Charity doing financially these days? She asks. Councilwoman Rodriguez, who serves on 3 nonprofit boards and knows everyone's business. Rodriguez leans in, lowering her voice. Between you and me, they're struggling. Donations are down across the board. Individual giving is way off from 5 years ago.
They're heavily dependent on their major donors just to maintain current programming, let alone expand. A tech CEO at the table chimes in. This gala is absolutely crucial for them. They use it to shore up their annual budget. Without events like this, they'd be in serious financial trouble. Helena runs a tight ship, but even she can't manufacture money out of thin air. Jasmine processes this information carefully. Metropolitan Charity isn't just grateful for major donors. They're dependent on them. That's leverage. She pulls out her phone while the conversation continues around her and checks the files her assistant sent. The documentation is comprehensive. 5 years of Okoye Foundation support, $2 million total. But it's not just the money. It's what that money funded. Computer labs for 15 inner-city schools, coding boot camps that served over 3,000 underserved youth, scholarships for 200 first-generation college students pursuing STEM degrees, a complete renovation of 3 community centers' technology facilities, teacher training programs, equipment, software licenses, internet access for families who couldn't afford it. The Okoye Foundation hasn't just written checks and walked away. They've transformed lives, created opportunities, built infrastructure that will serve communities for decades. And they're the second largest donor to this organization. Second. Only one foundation gives more annually. But there's something else in the files, something her mother's executive assistant flagged as important: correspondence between Helena Wentworth and Dr. Chioma Okoye, recent correspondence. Jasmine opens the email chain and starts reading. Her expression doesn't change, she's too controlled for that, but inside she's calculating rapidly. 3 weeks ago, Helena sent a detailed proposal to Dr. Okoye, a request for $10 million over 3 years to establish a new educational wing at one of the schools Metropolitan Charity supports. $10 million. The proposal is beautifully written, professionally produced, with architectural renderings and program descriptions and projected impact metrics. But there's something in the language that makes Jasmine pause. References to urban philanthropists and how they bring fresh perspectives to established charitable traditions. Comments about new money and how it can learn from legacy philanthropy. Subtle condescension wrapped in polite language. The subtext is clear. We want your money, but we don't quite respect where it came from. And Helena has been planning to announce this donation tonight. Jasmine scrolls further and finds internal Metropolitan Charity emails. Helena telling board members that the Okoye commitment is essentially secured, telling the development team to prepare announcement materials, telling the PR staff to draft press releases. She took the Okoye money for granted, assumed it was coming, treated it as a done deal, even though Dr. Okoye hasn't signed anything yet. Jasmine looks up from her phone and watches Helena across the ballroom, holding court with a group of wealthy donors, laughing graciously, every inch the perfect society hostess. And Jasmine realizes something. She has all the leverage. Metropolitan Charity needs the Okoye Foundation more than the Okoye Foundation needs Metropolitan Charity. There are hundreds of worthy causes her family could support, but Metropolitan Charity is counting on their money, literally budgeting based on the assumption it's coming. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, hit that button right now, because what Jasmine is about to do with this leverage will absolutely blow your mind. A foundation director at her table mentions that there's a big announcement coming during the program. I heard it's a $5 million consortium donation, huge for the organization. Helena's been working on it for months. $5 million, a major gift, but still less than what Helena is expecting from the Okoyes over 3 years.
Jasmine's phone buzzes. A text from her mother. Whatever you're planning, I trust your judgment. Use our power wisely. Jasmine types back. I will. I promise. She looks around table 4.
These are influential people. The councilwoman, the tech CEO, a museum director, a prominent lawyer, people with power and connections of their own. And they're watching her now, sensing that something has shifted in her demeanor. "Is everything all right?" the councilwoman asks quietly. "It will be, very soon." Dinner is served. 4 courses of luxury that probably cost more per plate than most families spend on groceries in a week. Seared scallops with microgreens and truffle oil. Wagyu beef with some kind of reduction sauce that has a French name nobody can pronounce. A salad that's more art installation than food. Dessert that involves gold leaf because apparently that's necessary. And then the speeches begin. The lights dim slightly. A spotlight hits the stage, and Helena Wentworth glides to the microphone like she was born to stand there, which, in a sense, she was. This is her domain, her event, her moment to shine. "Good evening, everyone," she says, her voice warm and commanding. "What an absolutely spectacular turnout we have tonight." Applause ripples through the ballroom. Practiced, polite, the sound of wealthy people acknowledging other wealthy people. For 30 years, this gala has been a cornerstone of our philanthropic community, a place where we come together not just to celebrate our success, but to ensure that success serves a greater purpose, to give back, to create opportunity, to make our city a better place for everyone. Beautiful words, inspiring rhetoric, the kind of speech she's given dozens of times before, polished to perfection. Tonight, I want to acknowledge some of the extraordinary individuals and organizations whose generosity makes our work possible. This is the part Jasmine has been waiting for. She sits up slightly, watching carefully. Helena starts calling donors. First, the Harrison Family Foundation. Would the Harrisons please stand?
A white family at a nearby table stands, parents in their 60s, 2 adult children with their spouses. They wave, smiling graciously. The applause is enthusiastic. Helena describes their contributions in detail. The Harrisons have been supporting our arts education programs for over a decade. Their commitment has brought music, theater, and visual arts to thousands of students who otherwise wouldn't have access to these transformative experiences. More applause. Photos are taken. Helena poses with the family. This goes on for 2 full minutes. Then she calls the next donor. The Vanderbilt Trust has committed an extraordinary gift to our literacy initiatives. Would the Vanderbilt representatives please come to the stage? An elegant white couple in their 50s walks up. More applause, more detailed acknowledgement, more photos. Helena presents them with a commemorative plaque. This pattern repeats. The Whitnor Foundation, called to the stage, celebrated, photographed. The Sterling Family Trust, same treatment. The Ashworth Charitable Fund, extended recognition, personal stories about their impact. Jasmine counts. 6 donors called by name, 6 extended acknowledgments, 6 photo opportunities. Every single one white. Then Helena gets to the Okoye Foundation. We're also grateful to the Okoye Foundation for their continued support of our technology programs. That's it. 1 sentence. Brief, generic, the kind of acknowledgement you could copy and paste into any thank you letter. No request for anyone to stand, no invitation to the stage, no details about their contributions, the computer labs, the scholarships, the transformed community centers, no photos, just a passing mention that takes maybe 5 seconds. For the second largest donor to the entire organization. Jasmine sits perfectly still, but her mind is recording everything. The pattern is undeniable now. White donors get celebrated. Donors of color get mentioned. And it continues. Helena thanks several other foundations with quick, generic acknowledgments. A prominent black business owner who donated $500,000, one sentence. An Asian American family foundation that's been supporting the charity for 8 years, brief mention. A Latino entrepreneur whose donation funded an entire program, generic thank you. Meanwhile, smaller donations from white families get stage time, plaques, extended applause.
Same money, different recognition, different respect. Jasmine notices something else. At other tables around the ballroom, other guests of color are noticing too. She sees their faces, the slight tightening around the eyes, the knowing looks they exchange with each other. They've seen this pattern before. They're just not surprised anymore. But there's one person who looks genuinely troubled. Marcus Davis, standing at the edge of the ballroom in his security uniform, watching the program unfold. His expression is carefully neutral, professionally blank, but his eyes tell a different story. He's counting too, noticing the same pattern, and he's not okay with it. Marcus's gaze drifts across the room and he catches Jasmine's eye. For a moment, they just look at each other. Two black professionals in a space that claims to value everyone equally but treats them as less than. Two people who know exactly what's happening and exactly why it matters. Marcus gives the slightest nod, not quite approval, not quite solidarity, just acknowledgement. I see what you're seeing. Yeah, me too. Helena continues her speech, building toward her big announcements. Tonight, I'm thrilled to share some exciting developments. We have several major commitments that will help us expand our reach and deepen our impact in the communities we serve. She's about to announce the consortium donation, the $5 million she's been working on for months, her triumphant moment. But Jasmine is no longer watching Helena. She's pulling out her phone, typing a message. It's time. I'm doing this. Her mother's response comes immediately. Make me proud. Make them understand. Jasmine stands up from table 4. Let's talk about Marcus Davis for a moment, because his story matters too, and what he's about to do will change his life forever. Marcus is 35 years old, former police officer. He spent 10 years on the force, and for most of that time, he genuinely believed he was doing good work, protecting people, serving his community, making a difference. But over those 10 years, he saw things that made him question everything. Corruption that went unchallenged because speaking up meant becoming an outcast. Racial profiling that was policy in everything but name. Officers who treated black neighborhoods like enemy territory. And good cops, cops like him, who stayed silent because speaking up meant losing their jobs, their pensions, their futures.
Marcus tried. He filed reports about officers who used excessive force. He questioned arrest decisions that seemed based on skin color rather than behavior. He pushed back against practices that targeted communities of color. And he was told, in increasingly clear terms, to shut up, to be a team player, to understand how things really work, to stop making trouble. So eventually, he quit, walked away from 10 years of service because he couldn't stomach the compromise anymore, couldn't look at himself in the mirror knowing he was part of a system that hurt the communities he'd sworn to protect. Now he works private security, corporate events, charity galas, weddings for wealthy families. It pays better than police work, irony of ironies, and he doesn't have to enforce unjust laws or look the other way when colleagues abuse their power. But he still sees things, patterns of discrimination that are subtler than policing but just as real. The way security gets called faster for guests of color, the way their credentials get questioned more thoroughly, the way staff of color get watched more carefully, treated with more suspicion, held to different standards. He's worked maybe 50 of these high society events over the past 3 years, and at every single one, he's seen it happen. Sometimes blatant, sometimes subtle, but always there. Tonight bothered him more than usual, because what Carol did to Jasmine wasn't subtle. It was overt discrimination dressed up as policy enforcement. And Marcus knew it the moment he arrived at that bathroom. He saw Jasmine's expensive gown, her obvious distress, Carol's defensive posture. He knew exactly what had happened and exactly why. But what could he do? He pulled up the guest list, confirmed Jasmine belonged, allowed her access, did his job, stayed professional, didn't make waves. Because Marcus needs this job. His daughter has type 1 diabetes. Her insulin and medical care cost thousands of dollars every month. His son is in college, working toward an engineering degree. His wife works full-time too, but they need both incomes plus Marcus's to keep everything afloat. Health insurance, mortgage payments, college tuition, medical bills. If Marcus speaks up, if he makes trouble, if he gets fired, his family suffers. It's that simple and that impossible. So he watches, and he hates it. And he stays silent.
But during his break, standing in a quiet corridor away from the gala, Marcus is scrolling through his phone when he hears footsteps. Jasmine approaches. She's composed now, no longer visibly distressed, but there's something different in her expression, a determination that wasn't there before. "Mr. Davis," she says, "can I speak with you privately?" They step into an alcove, away from passing staff and guests. "What happened earlier tonight?" Jasmine says, her voice direct and clear. "Has that happened before at these events?" Marcus hesitates because answering honestly means admitting things he's not supposed to admit, acknowledging problems he's supposed to pretend don't exist. But something about Jasmine's directness makes him answer truthfully. "More often than it should," he says carefully. "Sometimes it's subtle. Guests of color getting asked for credentials when white guests aren't. Sometimes it's blatant. Staff assuming people are in the wrong place just because of how they look. Has it happened to you?" Marcus gives a slight, bitter smile. "I'm security. People assume I belong here because I'm wearing a uniform that tells them my role. But my wife?" He pauses, remembering. "I brought her to one of these events last year as my +1. She wore her best dress, looked absolutely beautiful, was asked 3 separate times if she was looking for the service entrance, once by a valet, once by a guest who assumed she was looking for the catering entrance, and once by one of the house staff who asked what she was delivering. Why didn't you say anything?" The question isn't accusatory, just direct, wanting to understand. "What say?" Marcus asks. "To who?" "These are the people who pay my salary, Miss Okoye. I speak up. I'm fired. I'm fired. My kids lose their health insurance. My daughter needs insulin that costs $3,000 a month without insurance. So I watch, and I stay quiet, and I hate myself a little bit each time." The confession hangs in the air between them. "What if you didn't have to worry about that?" Jasmine asks. "What if you could tell the truth without fear of losing everything?"
Marcus looks at her carefully, trying to understand what she's offering. "What are you planning?" "Justice," Jasmine says simply. "But I need witnesses. I need people willing to tell the truth about what happens at these events, about the patterns, the systematic discrimination, the ways people of color get treated differently." Marcus is silent for a long moment, weighing the risk. Then, "There's a staff member you should talk to, Clara Martinez. She's worked catering here for 15 years. She's got stories, more than you probably want to hear. Can you introduce me?" Marcus nods slowly. "Yeah, I can do that. He leads Jasmine through service corridors, the parts of the Wentworth estate that guests never see. Plain walls, functional lighting. This is where the real work happens, where the illusion of effortless luxury is actually maintained through hard labor. They find Clara in the catering prep area, organizing dessert plates. She's in her late 40s, Latina, with tired eyes that have witnessed too many of these events. Marcus makes brief introductions, then steps back. "I can't afford trouble," Clara says immediately, defensive. "I need this job. I'm not here to cause trouble for you. I'm here because I was denied access to a bathroom tonight. They thought I was staff, and I'm told this isn't an isolated incident." Clara's expression shifts. Recognition, sympathy, but also caution. "What do you want from me?" "The truth, on record. With your permission, I want to document what actually happens at these events." For 10 minutes, Clara shares stories. Not dramatic stories. That's what makes them so devastating. Just normal incidents that happen so regularly, they've become background noise. The black server accused of theft when a guest's earring went missing, searched in front of everyone, humiliated, only for the earring to be found in the bathroom the next day. The housekeeper reprimanded for using a guest bathroom during a medical emergency, while white staff did it routinely, without consequences. The maintenance worker questioned about why he was in a particular area when he was literally there to fix a problem he'd been called to address.
The server who overheard guests making racist jokes and was told by management to just ignore it. Jasmine records everything, with Clara's permission. Names, dates, specific incidents, building documentation of a pattern that can't be dismissed as isolated events or misunderstandings. This isn't random. This is systematic. When they're done, Marcus walks Jasmine back toward the main ballroom. As they part, he says quietly, "Miss Okoye, what you're planning to do, it could backfire. These people protect their own." "So do I," Jasmine says. And Marcus realizes something. She's not going to let this go. She's not going to quietly accept what happened and move on. She's going to force a reckoning. And suddenly, Marcus makes a decision. He's been silent for years, watched injustice happen over and over, stayed quiet to protect his family. But maybe it's time to stop being silent. He pulls out his phone and starts typing, an email to his personal account, not the work account they can monitor, documenting everything he witnessed tonight. Every detail of the bathroom incident, every discriminatory pattern he's seen at these events over the years, every conversation he's overheard where staff of color were treated as less than. If Jasmine is going to speak truth to power, he's going to make sure she has backup. Because sometimes you have to risk everything to become the person your children think you are. Here's a question for you. If speaking up meant potentially losing your job and your family's financial security, would you stay silent or risk everything? It's easy to judge from the outside, but these decisions are never simple. Drop your honest answer in the comments. Jasmine returns to the ballroom just as Helena is building toward her major announcements. The spotlight is on the stage. 300 guests are watching, champagne glasses in hand, ready to applaud generosity and celebrate philanthropy. But they have no idea what's about to happen. Because Jasmine Okoye has just gathered evidence, built a case, and decided that silence is complicity. And now she's going to make sure everyone in this room understands exactly what their prestigious charity has been doing to people who look like her.
Stand up from your seat, Jasmine thinks. Walk to that stage and tell them the truth they don't want to hear. So she does. While Helena Wentworth stands on that stage, basking in applause and preparing for her triumphant announcements, Jasmine is in the service corridors of the estate, building something much more powerful than a speech. She's building an airtight case.
Marcus has just introduced her to Clara Martinez, and Clara is standing in the catering prep area, surrounded by dessert plates that need to be served in 15 minutes. She's 48 years old, Latina, with hands that show 15 years of hard work at events exactly like this one. And when Marcus explains why Jasmine wants to talk to her, Clara's first instinct is pure survival. "I can't afford trouble," she says immediately, her voice low. "I have 2 kids in college. I need this job. I can't risk retaliation." Because that's the reality for people like Clara. Speaking up isn't brave, it's dangerous. It's potentially catastrophic. One complaint to management, one accusation of being difficult, and suddenly your shifts get cut. Suddenly you're not on the schedule anymore. Suddenly you're looking for work with a reputation for being a troublemaker. But Jasmine doesn't push. She just stands there in her $15,000 gown in this utilitarian service corridor and says something Clara wasn't expecting. "I was denied access to a bathroom tonight. They thought I was staff, called security on me. And I'm told this kind of thing has happened before." Watch Clara's face change, because suddenly this isn't some rich guest asking for gossip. This is someone who experienced the same discrimination Clara has witnessed and experienced herself for 15 years. "What do you want from me?" Clara asks carefully. "The truth," Jasmine says, "on record with your full permission. I want to document what actually happens at these events. Not speculation, not rumors, facts, names, dates, patterns that can't be dismissed." Marcus looks at Marcus, who gives a slight nod. Then Clara looks back at Jasmine and makes a calculation. She could stay silent, protect her job, keep her head down like she's done for 15 years, or she could take a risk on this young woman who seems genuinely committed to forcing change. Something about Jasmine's directness, her obvious wealth, combined with her obvious anger at injustice, convinces Clara to trust her.
"Okay," Clara says quietly. "Okay, I'll tell you." And for the next 10 minutes, while the gala continues upstairs with its champagne and speeches and celebration of philanthropy, down in these service corridors, Clara shares the truth that nobody wants to acknowledge. She tells Jasmine about the systematic ways staff of color get treated differently, how they're watched more closely by supervisors, how their competence gets questioned in ways white staff never experience, how they're held to different standards. Arriving 5 minutes late is a problem for them, but not for white colleagues. How they're assigned the least desirable tasks without rotation. She talks about basic courtesies extended to white staff but denied to staff of color. White servers can take bathroom breaks whenever they need them. Staff of color have to ask permission and often get told to wait. White catering staff can grab a quick snack from the kitchen between service rounds. Staff of color get reprimanded for the same behavior. Then Clara tells Jasmine about DeAndre, 2 years ago. Black server, early 20s, working his way through community college. During one of these galas, a guest reported her diamond earring missing. Expensive piece, probably worth $15,000. And what happened? Security immediately focused on DeAndre. Not the other servers who'd been in the same area. DeAndre. They pulled him aside, made him empty his pockets in front of other staff and guests, searched his bag, treated him like a criminal based on nothing but assumption and proximity. They found the earring the next day, Clara says, her voice tight with remembered anger. It was in the bathroom. The guest had taken it off to adjust her hair and forgot it on the counter. But DeAndre? He quit, walked out, said he couldn't work somewhere that assumed he was a thief just because something went missing and he was nearby. Jasmine is recording all of this on her phone with Clara's explicit permission.
She's not just collecting anecdotes, she's building documentation, evidence of a pattern so consistent it can't possibly be coincidence. Clara keeps going. She tells Jasmine about the housekeeper, black woman in her 50s who'd worked for the Wentworths for a decade, who used a guest bathroom during a medical emergency. She had severe abdominal pain, thought she might be having a gallbladder attack, couldn't make it down 2 flights of stairs to the staff facilities. She was written up, formal reprimand in her file. Meanwhile, white housekeeping staff used guest bathrooms regularly, and nobody said a word. She tells Jasmine about the maintenance worker, Latino man, experienced tradesman, who was questioned about why he was in a particular hallway when he was literally there to fix a plumbing issue he'd been called to address. Guests saw him, assumed he was somewhere he shouldn't be, complained to management. He had to show his work order, prove he'd been called, justify his presence. White maintenance workers never get stopped.
She tells Jasmine about racist jokes, guests making comments about those people or using thinly veiled racist language, and when servers report it to management, they're told to just ignore it. Don't make guests uncomfortable, they're told. Let it go. They're donors. The pattern is undeniable. This isn't isolated incidents. This isn't misunderstandings or bad luck. This is systematic discrimination, so normalized that it's become invisible to the people running the organization. Jasmine records every story, names when Clara remembers them, dates when she can provide them, details that turn anecdotes into documented evidence. While this is happening, Jasmine's phone buzzes with new files from her mother's executive assistant. More information about the Wentworths and Metropolitan Charity, and what Jasmine finds is damning in a different way. Email correspondence between Helena Wentworth and Dr. Chioma Okoye about the proposed $10 million donation. The emails are professionally written, perfectly polite on the surface. But if you read carefully, and Jasmine reads very carefully, the subtext is devastating. References to urban philanthropists and how they bring fresh perspectives to established charitable traditions. Comments about new money and how it can learn from legacy philanthropy. Suggestions that the Okoye should feel grateful to be included in prestigious initiatives with respected institutions. There's even an email to Helena's development director that somehow got included in the correspondence by mistake. Helena writing about how new money donors require more hand-holding and how we need to make sure they understand the prestige they're buying into with this partnership. The prestige they're buying into, as if the Okoye's $10 million is payment for social acceptance rather than a charitable gift meant to serve communities. The subtext is absolutely clear. We want your money, but we don't respect you. We'll take your millions and give you just enough recognition to keep you donating, but you'll never be truly part of this world. You'll always be new money, urban philanthropists, other. Jasmine reads these emails while standing in that service corridor, and something crystallizes in her mind. This isn't just about tonight's bathroom incident. This isn't even just about staff discrimination, though that's unconscionable. This is about an entire system that treats people of color as less than, whether they're staff or donors, whether they have nothing or millions, whether they're serving food or funding programs. The common denominator isn't class or education or accomplishment, it's race.
And Jasmine is done pretending otherwise. Jasmine walks back into the ballroom transformed. She's not just a guest anymore. She's not a victim. She's someone with evidence, documentation, power, and the willingness to use all of it. The program is still going. Helena has wrapped up the individual donor acknowledgments and is building toward her big finale. The energy in the room is warm, celebratory, exactly what she wanted. And now, Helena says, her voice carrying that perfect pitch of excitement and gratitude,
I'm delighted to share some truly transformative news about the future of metropolitan charity. She's about to announce the $5 million consortium donation, her triumph moment, the result of months of cultivation and negotiation and relationship building. But before she can say another word, there's movement at table 4. Jasmine Okoye stands up. Not dramatically, not rushing, just standing with deliberate purpose and walking toward the stage. 300 heads turn, because this isn't protocol. Guests don't just walk up to the stage during formal programs. This isn't how these events work. Elena sees her coming, and confusion flickers across her perfectly composed face. She can't quite process what's happening. Is this planned? Did she forget something on the program? What is this young woman doing? The murmuring starts. Guests whispering to each other. Who is that? What's happening? Is this part of the program? Jasmine reaches the stage stairs, and Helena, maintaining her professional composure despite her confusion, asks, "Yes? Is there something I can help you with?" Her tone is gracious, but carries a subtext. "This is irregular. You're interrupting. Please make this quick." But Jasmine doesn't stop walking. She comes right up to the stage, looks Helena directly in the eye, and says, in a voice loud enough for nearby tables to hear, "Mrs. Wentworth, I'd like to address the gathering as a representative of one of your major donors." Helena is trapped, completely trapped. She can't refuse without appearing rude, can't dismiss a major donor without insulting them publicly, can't ignore this request without everyone noticing and wondering why. She does the only thing she can, forces a smile, and says, "Of course. Please come up."
If you're not subscribed to this channel, hit that button right now. Because what happens in the next few minutes will be one of the most powerful moments you'll ever see at a high society event. Jasmine climbs those stairs, each step deliberate. Helena reluctantly hands her the microphone, and you can see the calculation happening behind Helena's eyes. Maybe this is about announcing an increased donation. Maybe Jasmine wants to publicly commit to the 10 million. Maybe this will actually be good. Jasmine takes the microphone, stands center stage, 300 of the wealthiest, most powerful people in the city staring at her. The room goes completely silent. "Good evening," Jasmine says. Her voice is calm, clear, steady. "For those who don't know me, I'm Jasmine Okoye, representing the Okoye Foundation." Recognition ripples through the crowd. Some people know that name, know it means serious wealth, know it's attached to a tech billionaire, know it represents major philanthropic resources. Others are hearing it for the first time, but can sense from the reactions around them that this is someone important. Helena's smile widens slightly. This is good, she thinks. Okoye Foundation, major donor. This might actually be a positive announcement. "My mother, Dr. Chiona Okoye, has been a supporter of Metropolitan Charity for 5 years. We've donated over $2 million to your programs. We've provided technology for your educational initiatives, 15 computer labs in underserved schools. We've funded scholarships for over 200 first-generation college students. We've supported facility improvements at 3 community centers. We've brought coding education to thousands of young people who otherwise wouldn't have access." Helena nods approvingly. Yes, this is going exactly where she hoped. Public acknowledgement of past support, building toward announcement of future commitment. Several guests start to applaud, but Jasmine doesn't pause for it. "Tonight," she says, "I came to this event to network, to connect with fellow philanthropists, to represent my family's commitment to social good, and continue our partnership with organizations doing important work." The room relaxes slightly. This sounds positive, expected. But something happened tonight that I think everyone in this room needs to hear about.
The atmosphere changes instantly. That wasn't the sentence anyone expected. Helena's smile falters. "I was denied access to a bathroom." Gasps, actual gasps from multiple tables, confused murmuring. What did she just say? Not because the facility was occupied, Jasmine continues, her voice steady. Not because of any legitimate safety concern, not because of any reasonable policy, but because a staff member looked at me, at my face, at my skin color, and assumed I didn't belong here. Assumed I was service staff rather than a guest. Helena's face drains of color. This is not what she planned. This is the opposite of what she planned. When I tried to explain I was a guest, I was questioned, doubted, asked to produce my ticket to prove I had a right to be here, told to use the staff facilities downstairs, past the kitchen, away from the guest areas, because the person guarding that bathroom door decided, based on nothing but how I look, that I didn't belong in guest spaces. The room is completely silent now. You could hear a champagne glass clink from across the ballroom. It took security pulling up the guest list on a tablet for me to be believed. And even then, even after it was confirmed I was seated at table 4, one of your premium tables, I heard another guest whisper that the staff member was just being cautious. Better safe than sorry. Jasmine looks directly at Jennifer Hartley, doesn't point, doesn't gesture, just looks, and 300 people follow her gaze to see Jennifer shrinking in her seat, trying to disappear. Better safe than sorry, Jasmine repeats, as if I represented some kind of threat that needed to be guarded against, as if my presence in a guest bathroom was a security concern rather than a basic human need. Someone in the audience tries to say something, but Jasmine keeps going. At first, I thought this might be an isolated incident, one staff member's mistake, one moment of unfortunate assumption. But then I started asking questions, and this isn't an isolated incident at all. She pulls out her phone. In the last hour, I've spoken with staff members who've experienced the same treatment, who've been treated as less than, who've had their competence questioned in ways white staff never experience, who've been subjected to suspicion and surveillance that's only applied to people who look like them. Helena tries to interject. Miss Okoye, I'm sure this was simply a misunderstanding.
It wasn't a misunderstanding, Mrs. Wentworth. Jasmine's voice gets firmer, not louder but more forceful. It was prejudice. Systematic, normalized prejudice that's been happening at your events for years. The room erupts in murmurs, guests turning to each other, shocked, uncomfortable, some angry. 2 years ago, Jasmine continues, a black server was accused of theft when a guest lost an expensive earring. He was searched, humiliated in front of other staff and guests, treated like a criminal. The earring was found the next day in the bathroom. The guest had simply forgotten it. But that server quit. Couldn't work somewhere that assumed he was a thief based on nothing but his proximity to a missing item and the color of his skin. More gasps, more murmuring. Staff of color are held to different standards, watched more closely, denied basic courtesies like bathroom breaks or quick snacks between service that white staff receive without question. When they report racist comments from guests, they're told to ignore it, to not make donors uncomfortable. Jasmine looks out at the audience. And it's not just staff. I've reviewed how this organization acknowledges donors. White donors get called to the stage, get photo opportunities, get their contributions celebrated in detail. Donors of color get brief mentions, generic thank yous. Same money, different recognition. She lets that sink in. And around the ballroom, donors of color are looking at each other with recognition. They've felt this. They've experienced it. They just hadn't named it. This reveals something fundamental about this organization, Jasmine says, something every person in this room needs to understand. Metropolitan Charity doesn't just have a problem with one bathroom attendant or one unfortunate incident. You have a systematic pattern of treating people of color, whether they're staff or donors, whether they have nothing or millions, as less than, as other, as people who need to prove they belong rather than people who are welcomed and valued. The silence is absolute, crushing. 300 wealthy people forced to confront uncomfortable truths they've been avoiding. Helena stands frozen on that stage, her perfect evening destroyed, her careful plans in ruins. And Jasmine Okoye, 24 years old, brilliant and powerful and done with accepting discrimination, is about to tell them exactly what happens next. Here's a question for you. If you witnessed this speech happening in real time, would you applaud or would you feel uncomfortable? Be honest, because how we respond to truth-telling says a lot about our values. Drop your answer in the comments.
Jasmine stands on that stage, microphone in hand, 300 of the wealthiest people in the city staring at her in shocked silence. Helena Wentworth beside her, looking like her entire world just collapsed. And Jasmine isn't done, not even close. "My mother taught me something fundamental," Jasmine says, her voice carrying to every corner of that ballroom. "She taught me that wealth is responsibility, that those of us with resources, whether we earned them or inherited them or built them, have an obligation to create equity, not perpetuate hierarchy." She pauses, letting that sink in. Because half the people in this room inherited their wealth, never worked for it, never struggled, just benefited from systems designed to concentrate resources in certain families, certain communities, certain racial groups. She taught me that true philanthropy isn't about charity, it's about justice. It's not about making ourselves feel good by giving money to people we consider less fortunate. It's about dismantling the systems that create inequality in the first place. Jasmine pulls out her phone, and suddenly the screen behind her, the elegant display that's been showing beautiful photos of the estate all evening, changes. An email appears, projected large enough for everyone to see. "This is a proposal your organization sent to my mother 3 weeks ago, requesting $10 million over 3 years to establish a new educational wing." The gasps are immediate. This is private correspondence, confidential fundraising communication, and Jasmine just made it public. Helena looks absolutely horrified. Her mouth opens, but no sound comes out, because displaying that proposal isn't just embarrassing. It reveals that she was planning to announce a donation that was never confirmed, that she took the Okoye money for granted. "My mother was considering this proposal seriously. $10 million is a significant commitment, even for our foundation. But we were prepared to make it because we believed Metropolitan Charity was doing important work, work that aligned with our values, work that served the communities we care about." She looks directly at Helena. "But tonight's events have made me reconsider whether this organization truly embodies the values it claims to represent." The silence is so complete you could hear someone breathing from across the room. Does this organization treat all people with dignity? Does it value all donors equally or just certain donors? Does it create equity or does it perpetuate the same hierarchies and exclusions that exist everywhere else in society? Jasmine's voice gets stronger.
Is this organization worthy of continued support from families like mine who actually come from the communities you claim to serve? Families who understand what it means to be dismissed, underestimated, treated as less than. Helena tries to speak. Mrs. Okoye, I can assure you, Mrs. Wentworth, I'm not finished. The firmness in Jasmine's voice cuts through any remaining doubt about who has power in this moment. Helena closes her mouth. So here's what's going to happen, Jasmine says, and her voice carries absolute certainty. The Okoye Foundation is suspending all donations to Metropolitan Charity effective immediately. The room erupts. Gasps, shocked exclamations, people turning to each other in disbelief, because this isn't just dramatic, this is financially catastrophic for the organization. Our $2 million commitment over the past 5 years, suspended. The $10 million proposal you were planning to announce tonight as if it were already confirmed, withdrawn. Helena's face literally crumbles, all her composure, all her society hostess polish, completely gone. She looks like she might cry or faint or both. Board members at various tables are standing up, agitated, trying to figure out what to do. This is a disaster, an absolute unmitigated disaster. But Helena holds up one hand, and somehow, impossibly, the room quiets again. Unless, she says. That single word hangs in the air. Unless, a lifeline, a possibility of redemption. Here are my conditions, Jasmine says, and she's not asking, she's telling. First, a public apology. Not to me specifically, to everyone. Every staff member who's experienced discrimination. Every guest of color who's been made to feel like they don't belong. Every person who's been treated as less than at your events. She pauses, making sure everyone understands this isn't negotiable. Second, mandatory anti-bias training for all staff and board members. Not a 1-hour workshop where everyone nods along and nothing changes. Comprehensive, ongoing training. Conducted by external experts, with accountability measures, with assessments, with consequences for people who refuse to engage meaningfully.
Some guests are nodding. Others look deeply uncomfortable. Good, Jasmine thinks. Discomfort means growth is possible. Third, a complete review of your hiring practices. I want to see equity in recruitment, equity in treatment, equity and advancement opportunities. I want data showing you're not just hiring people of color for invisible positions while keeping leadership overwhelmingly white. Helena is just standing there, processing, trying to understand the scope of what's being demanded. Fourth, creation of a staff advisory board. Not a token committee that meets once a year and has no real power. An actual decision-making body that includes voices of color. Staff members, not just management, participating in decisions that affect how this organization operates. Jasmine is building something here. Not just demands, but a comprehensive transformation plan. Fifth, quarterly audits by independent reviewers, external evaluators who assess whether these policies are actually being followed or just existing on paper, with public transparency reports on diversity in staffing, board composition, and, yes, donor acknowledgement and recognition. That last part hits home, because suddenly the white donors in the audience realize they're going to have to share their privileged status. They're going to be held accountable for perpetuating inequality. And one more thing, Jasmine says. Carol, the bathroom attendant who denied me access, must be given a choice. Comprehensive retraining with full pay or resignation with severance. Not fired. I'm not interested in punishment for its own sake, but educated or separated. She doesn't get to keep doing things the way she's always done them.
Carol is somewhere in this building, probably having no idea she's being discussed on stage, in front of 300 people. Jennifer Hartley. Jasmine looks directly at Jennifer, who looks like she wants to disappear into the floor. Must issue a personal, public apology for endorsing discrimination and suggesting it was appropriate to treat me with suspicion simply for trying to use a bathroom. Jennifer's face is red, tears streaming down her cheeks, but Jasmine isn't being cruel. She's being clear about accountability. These aren't suggestions, Jasmine says, her voice ringing with authority. These are conditions. Non-negotiable conditions. Meet them, and the Okoye Foundation will not only restore our current commitment, will double it. $4 million annually instead of $2 million, plus the $10 million for the new wing, which will be renamed the Equity and Inclusion Center.
The carrot. After the stick, the carrot. Lose everything or commit to change and gain even more. But reject these terms, Jasmine continues, and we walk away, permanently. And I will personally make sure every other major donor of color in this city, and there are many of us, more than you probably realize, knows exactly why we are walking away, knows exactly what happened here tonight, knows exactly what this organization's values really are. The threat is clear. This isn't just about losing one donor. It's about losing credibility with an entire demographic of philanthropists. Helena stands there, completely trapped. Accept and admit systematic discrimination publicly, or refuse and face financial catastrophe plus reputational destruction. She looks out at the audience, sees board members watching, sees major donors waiting, sees her entire social position balanced on this moment. Her voice shakes when she speaks. We accept all of your conditions. The words come out barely above a whisper, but the microphone catches them. And Miss Okoye, Helena continues, fighting to maintain some dignity, I personally apologize for what happened to you tonight. Don't apologize to me, Mrs. Wentworth. Apologize to every person in this room. Apologize to every staff member who's been treated as less than. Apologize to every guest of color who's been made to feel they don't belong despite their wealth, their education, their accomplishments. Apologize to everyone who's experienced discrimination at your events, while you remained willfully blind to patterns that should have been obvious. Helena takes a shaky breath, turns to face the full audience, and in front of 300 people, admits failure. I apologize, she says, her voice breaking, to everyone who has experienced discrimination at our events, in our organization, under my leadership. I failed to see patterns that were right in front of me. I failed to create an inclusive environment. I failed to use my position and privilege to demand better. I'm sorry. It's not perfect. It's uncomfortable. It's clearly painful for Helena, but it's public, it's on record, and it's the beginning of accountability. The audience erupts, not in unanimous applause, nothing that simple. It's mixed. Some people are standing, applauding loudly, particularly donors of color who've been waiting years for someone to say what Jasmine just said. Others sit in uncomfortable silence, processing, unsure how to feel. Some look angry, at Jasmine for disrupting their comfortable evening, at Helena for caving to demands, at the situation for forcing them to confront uncomfortable truths. Patterns having been disturbed, sheeple forced to look up at the shepherd, language disrupted. It's chaos, and in that moment, Jasmine looks happy.
But the applause builds, slowly, then more strongly.
Because even people who feel uncomfortable recognize something important just happened. If you believe in holding institutions accountable and using power to create real change, hit that subscribe button right now, because this story isn't over, and what happens next will show you whether words translate into actual transformation. The rest of Helena's carefully planned program, completely abandoned. There's no way to continue with speeches and announcements after which has happened. The gala has been transformed from a celebration into a reckoning. Helena makes a brief, stumbling statement committing to implement all of Jasmine's conditions. She promises quarterly updates, promises transparency, promises change. She sounds shell-shocked, which she probably is. Some guests start leaving, not dramatically storming out, but quietly gathering their things and heading for the doors. They came for an elegant evening of philanthropy and networking, not to have their assumptions challenged and their complicity exposed. They're uncomfortable, defensive, done with the evening. But others stay, and some even approach Jasmine as she comes down from the stage. A black tech executive who's been attending these galas for years. Thank you. Someone needed to say that. I've felt it for so long, but never had the leverage to demand change. An Asian American Foundation director. The donor recognition patterns, I noticed that years ago, but I didn't know if it was just me being sensitive. Thank you for naming it. A Latina business owner. I'm increasing my donation to support what you just did, to support the changes you're demanding. But then, Jennifer Hartley approaches. She's been crying. Her makeup is ruined, her eyes red and swollen. She looks absolutely devastated. Ms. Okoye, I'm so sorry. I didn't think. I just assumed. I was so wrong. The apology is messy, emotional, but seems genuine. You assumed because you've never had to question whether you belong, Jasmine says, not unkindly, but not letting Jennifer off the hook either. That's privilege, Mrs. Hartley. The ability to move through the world without constantly proving your right to exist in certain spaces, without having your credentials questioned, without being viewed with suspicion. Jennifer nods, wiping tears. Use this as an opportunity to understand privilege, Jasmine continues, to recognize it in yourself and others, and then use it to create equity instead of reinforcing hierarchy. Speak up when you see people being treated the way you help treat me. That's how you make this right. Then Carol is brought in to meet with Helena and Jasmine in a private side room. She's defensive immediately, arms crossed, face set in anger. I've worked here 20 years, Carol says. I was just following what I thought were the rules. I was doing my job. The rules were designed to exclude people like me, Jasmine says calmly. You enforce them without questioning them, without asking why certain people always get stopped and others never do. Carol's defensive anger starts to crack. I didn't think about it that way. That's the problem. You didn't think about it. You just assumed your instincts were correct, that your snap judgments about who belongs where were accurate. Carol is quiet for a long moment. Then, what happens to me now? You have a choice, Jasmine says. Comprehensive retraining, real education about bias, discrimination, how unconscious prejudice works, learning to recognize your own assumptions and question them. With full pay, I'm not interested in punishing you financially. Or you can resign with severance. Either way, you keep your economic security. But you don't get to keep treating people the way you treated me. Carol stands there processing. If I do the training, what does that look like? Hard, uncomfortable. It means confronting beliefs you've held your entire life, recognizing ways you've hurt people without meaning to, changing behaviors that feel automatic to you. But it also means becoming better, more aware, more equitable. After a long pause, Carol says quietly, I'll do the training. Not because she's suddenly enlightened, but because she needs the job. And maybe, just maybe, because some part of her recognizes she was wrong. Marcus Davis approaches Jasmine later as the gala winds down and most guests have left.
"What you did tonight," he says quietly. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," Jasmine responds, "because my mother taught me that silence is complicity, that those of us with power, whether it's money or platform or position, have an obligation to use it for people who don't have those resources. If I stay silent, I'm part of the problem." Marcus nods slowly. "I've been silent for a long time, watching things happen, knowing they were wrong, but staying quiet to protect my job, my family. You spoke up tonight, that counts. I'm probably fired. Maybe, or maybe you just became the most valuable person in this organization, someone willing to tell the truth, someone who can help them actually change instead of just pretending to." The gala continues for another hour, but it's completely different now. Conversations at tables aren't about business deals and social connections. They're about race, privilege, discrimination, accountability. Uncomfortable conversations that should have happened years ago. Some people are angry, some are defensive, but others are genuinely reflecting, questioning, trying to understand. Change is messy. It's uncomfortable. It doesn't happen in one dramatic moment, but it starts somewhere. And tonight, it started here. 3 months later. Jasmine returns to Metropolitan Charity, but not for a gala. She's visiting their offices, meeting with staff, reviewing the changes that have been implemented. And the transformation is real. The anti-bias training isn't performative, it's comprehensive, ongoing, facilitated by external experts who don't pull punches. Staff members attend quarterly sessions, board members participate in intensive workshops. The training covers implicit bias, microaggressions, systemic discrimination, privilege, equity versus equality. Some people resisted at first, got defensive, insisted they weren't racist so they didn't need training. But gradually, uncomfortably, conversations started changing. People started recognizing patterns they'd never noticed, started questioning assumptions they'd held for decades.
The Staff Advisory Board is functioning with actual power. Clara Martinez sits on it, the same catering worker who shared her stories with Jasmine that night. Her voice matters now. She's part of decision-making about policies, practices, working conditions. The diversity audits are published quarterly. Public transparency reports showing demographics of staff, board composition, donor recognition patterns. The first report was ugly, revealing how white the leadership was, how unequal the treatment. But now, it's measurable, trackable, accountable. Jasmine walks through the charity's headquarters and sees the changes. Staff of color in leadership positions, not just behind-the-scenes roles. Inclusive signage. Policies that apply equally to everyone. A culture that's visibly different from 3 months ago. Carol approaches her in the hallway. She looks nervous but determined. "Miss Okoye," she says, "I wanted you to know I've learned so much about my own biases, about how I saw people without even realizing I was making assumptions, about the patterns I never questioned." She pauses. "I'm grateful you gave me the chance to be better rather than just punishing me. The training has been hard, really hard, confronting things about myself I didn't want to see. But I'm better for it. I'm more aware, more careful, more equitable." We all have biases, Carol, every single one of us. The question isn't whether we have them, it's whether we're willing to confront them, whether we're willing to do the uncomfortable work of change. Marcus Davis walks by, and Jasmine does a double take. He's wearing different attire, still professional, but not security uniform. "Director of Security and Staff Relations," Marcus says with a slight smile, showing her his new business card. "Turns out speaking truth to power didn't get me fired. It got me promoted." His job now includes ensuring equitable treatment of all staff,
investigating discrimination complaints, training security personnel on implicit bias. He's building systems to prevent what happened to Jasmine from happening to anyone else. The organization is thriving. Other donors of color have increased their support, impressed by the genuine commitment to change. White donors who were uncomfortable at first have mostly stayed, recognizing that equity doesn't diminish them, it just levels the playing field. Then, Dr. Chioma Okoye visits, Jasmine's mother, the billionaire, the woman who built an empire from nothing. She's here for a major announcement.
Dr. Okoye stands with Helena Wentworth. Their relationship has transformed from transactional to genuinely collaborative and announces not $10 million, but $15 million for the new educational wing. But it will be called the Equity and Inclusion Center. This center will serve everyone, Dr. Okoye says, her Nigerian accent still present despite decades in America. Every child, regardless of background, every family, regardless of income, every student, regardless of race. And it will be built on a principle that should have been obvious all along. True philanthropy means creating opportunity for all, not gatekeeping access for a few. The press is there, community leaders, students who will benefit from the center, and the energy is completely different from that gala 3 months ago. Finally, Jasmine needs to use the bathroom. She walks to the facilities at the charity's headquarters, and everything is different. Inclusive signage welcoming everyone. No attendant guarding the door. No questions about credentials or tickets or who belongs where. Just a bathroom. Accessible to everyone, the way it always should have been. Jasmine stands at the sink afterward, washing her hands, and looks at herself in the mirror. 3 months ago, she was humiliated in a bathroom at a luxury estate, treated as less than, made to prove she deserved basic dignity. Tonight, she transformed an entire organization. Not through destruction, but through accountability. Not through revenge, but through demanding change that should have happened decades ago. They tried to deny her dignity over something as basic as a bathroom. But Jasmine Okoye understood something powerful. Sometimes the people you dismiss are exactly the ones who can force you to become better. Not through humiliation. She could have destroyed Helena Wentworth's reputation, gotten people fired, made a spectacle of revenge. But she didn't. Instead, she demanded transformation. She used her power not to tear down, but to rebuild better. She created systems of accountability so that nobody else would have to experience what she experienced. Because real power isn't about humiliating those who humiliated you. It's about transforming systems so the humiliation can't happen to the next person. It's about using privilege to create equity. It's about recognizing that silence is complicity and speaking up even when it's uncomfortable. Jasmine Okoye walked into that gala as a guest. She left as a force for change.
And 3 months later, Metropolitan Charity is proof that institutions can transform when forced to confront their failures, when held accountable, when given the choice between change and irrelevance. Stand up for dignity. Demand accountability. Use your privilege to create equity. Your voice matters. Because if Jasmine had stayed silent, nothing would have changed. Carol would still be guarding bathrooms based on assumptions. Staff of color would still be treated as less than. Donors of color would still be minimized and dismissed. But she spoke up, and everything changed. Here's my final question for you. When you see injustice, whether it's happening to you or to someone else, do you speak up or do you stay silent? Because the choice we make in those moments determines what kind of world we're building. Share your honest answer in the comments, because your voice is part of this conversation too.